Hey everyone, welcome back to your practice. This practice is going to be a quickie for mostly your hips, and I made it with climbers in mind, but it could be for anyone who's looking for melting their hips open. We'll use some oscillating techniques, so rocking side to side. I find this method really soothing and kind of allows me to introduce my nervous system to the sensation of stretch. So think like if you go too hard, too fast, you burn. Slow, gradual, there's this melting feeling, and I definitely feel that in my hips. So I'll invite you to come to a seat, and I'm starting by sitting on a blanket. You might want a couple thick blocks if you use those for underneath your hands in standing shapes. I won't show that today, but know that that's always an option. All right, let's begin by getting into our side body. So you can shift over to your right side, let your left arm come up, out, and over, and find a side stretch there. So you might land in your right elbow, like go all the way over, reach through your top arm, try to get a little more towards straight, and your left hip might come off of the floor. And then when you're down there on your right elbow, try to get your left hip to drop back down to the floor. So really peel that left side open. Yeah, take a breath in there. If your head and neck are sore, for sure you can hold onto your neck with your top arm. Take a breath out. Let's come all the way up into the middle. And in the middle, just notice the difference between the two sides. Let's get into our neck a little bit. So we're gonna let our right ear come towards our right shoulder. Drop chin to chest. Left ear towards left shoulder. Drop chin to chest. Okay, lift chest to lift your chin, and we'll lean over to the left side. So go all the way to the left, and you can let your right arm come up, out, and over, and maybe you lean so far that your elbow hits the ground and your right hip comes off the ground. Like let it really drop into that left elbow, and then you can straighten your top arm, and you can try to bring your right hip back towards the ground. And take a breath in. You can always hold onto your head here if that's more supportive for your neck. Take a breath out. And then with your top arm, you can come all the way back up. Okay, a little bit in the neck here. So you can spider finger your fingers behind you, open your collarbones, and then start to circle your head one way. And just notice if there's little crunchies in there, especially as you go back maybe, and then the other. Might do that with your breath. Nice, and then release that out. Let's come onto our hands and our knees. So we're gonna shift that prop over to the side there and work into our wrists a little. So on your wrists, let's press the ground away, press into the knuckles underneath your fingers, and start to shift forwards and back. And you can also tuck your toes here and get a little stretch for the soles of your feet. Forwards and back. Okay, let's try turning one hand all the way around, fingertips or fingers towards the knees, and then go forwards and back. And you might go a little slower in that one. And if you want, you can start with the oscillating forwards and back, or you could sit down on either your tucked toes or the tops of your feet, and then try to bend your elbow a little there. Maybe try to reach out through your thumb, even lift your thumb off of the mat for a breath in. Breath out. Shift it forwards, release that, roll out through that wrist and switch sides. So right hand inverts, and you can go forwards and back there. Or you can sit back and stay a little. So you might sit back on your tucked toes, that might be enough. You might sit back on the tops of your feet. No need to make this too intense, just people have different bodies and different levels of flexibility. And you can stretch out through your right thumb if you want, even lift it off the ground and try to bend your right elbow. Take a breath out. Okay, and then we'll shift on forwards. You can roll out that wrist. And then let's try to take both of the backs of the hands to the ground. You can bend your elbows out to the side, tap your forehead down, and then slowly start to straighten both arms and maybe spin the veiny part of your elbow forwards and flick your fingernails into the ground. You can do that again, bend, tap, straighten, and turn the veiny parts of your elbows forwards. Nice, one more time, bend, and roll it around. Okay, shake that out. Hands facing forwards again, and this time let's pop up onto the knuckles underneath our fingers. And if you want to make this a little less kind of intense, walk your knees in and put more weight into your knees, because we'll try to get a long line from the knuckles and bring the wrist more over that line to the armpit. So maybe you're leaning back, try to lean a little more forwards, yeah. And then decelerate the lowering of your wrist. So we're gonna go slowly down to tap the wrist and then slowly back up. Now if you want a little more out of this, you'd walk your knees back almost like a knee plank, and you'll see how that brings a little more strength into this movement. Some people even do it from a plank. That's still hard for me, and I feel like doing it one hand at a time, or shifting back to make it happen. So you can try that. Going up and down and decelerating that lower and trying to shift your armpits there over your knuckles. All right, so let's take our left hand to the ground, our right arm up into a twist, and then take our right arm under and take our right temple to the floor. And you can press your left hand into the floor and maybe look up like you're rolling over onto your ponytail, or where a ponytail would be on the back of your head, to get a little more into that upper back. Press into your left fingertips to assist you in that. And then we'll come on up out of that. And we'll go left arm up and circle it under. Right fingertips press. Aim your hips back. And you might look up like you're rolling onto where a ponytail might be. And then we'll come on back up. Okay, a little bit of a cat-cow movement. So arching your spine and rounding your spine. And make it yours. You can find all those nooks and crannies that feel a little more tight, and the pacing is totally up to you, right? So you can make it slower or make it faster. You can add in some free-form movements like circling your hips, maybe circling your hips and tapping one hip to the ground and over to the other side. Okay, so let's walk ourselves back into a squat. So tuck your toes, start to lift your knees up, and some of you might be in a toe squat at the back of your mat. Some of you might let your heels come to the ground like that. You can also for sure widen your feet and turn your toes and knees out a little bit. So wherever you're at with that, take your hands forwards and see if your elbows can come on the insides of your knees. And we'll start to shift forwards, almost like we're, and then widen the knees. If you can catch them on your elbows there, widen and shift a little forward. So this might be like a micro movement, a little bit forwards and back, or you might really shift forwards, almost like you're gonna pick your feet up, and your elbows can ease your knees back and out. And that's also quite a bit of work for your wrists. So going into that just as much as you need to, feeling the difference. I'm kind of feeling that the top of my femur bone, where it plugs into my pelvis, is getting a little traction, a little decompression when I do that, especially if I press out with my elbows. So we'll do this for 5. You can always come out of this as well. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then we're going to walk ourselves back out towards downward facing dog. Pedal out your feet there. Bend one knee, straighten the other leg, and switch. Pad side to side a little. Pressing your arms towards straight, pushing the ground away, getting really long through your side body. As you're using this oscillating movement to open your body gently, also use your breath to open your body gently. Maybe slow it down. Make it a little more velvety soft. Okay, let's bring our right foot forwards. So we're in a long lunge and you can wiggle your back foot back. And you can start to shift forwards and back, getting into your calf of your back leg, your Achilles, for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then let your back knee drop. Untuck your back toes and let your hips melt towards the ground here. So you can you can stay in this for sure. You can use this forward and back movements. Right toes can kick up, so you might feel that in your hamstring, and then shift forwards and right toes hit the floor. So you can go forwards and back in that. Taking your time. And when you come forwards, you might want to crawl up and take your hands on top of your front knee and press into your front foot. So if you feel like you're kind of sagging into the joint of the left hip, press into your front foot and get a little more lift out of that and see how that affects your stretch. And we'll take a breath in. Some of you might want to take your arms up here, really lift up, and you're always welcome to kind of gradually melt your hips to the floor. And we'll take our hands back down to the floor and shift forwards and back. Okay, we're going to tuck our back toes, lift up our back knee, and walk all the way around to a wide-legged forward fold to the left side of your mat. So all 10 toes face to the left side of your mat. Okay, now we're going to take our hands to the ground and shift forwards and back. So shift into your toes, hips come forwards, almost like you're really going to weight your hands and lighten your feet. Transfer the weight from your hands to your feet. Breathe into that. Now, if you want to, you can take your forearms to the ground and keep doing that movement. I'm coming up onto tippy toes as I shift forwards into my elbows, and then heels really press to get into your hips moving back. And you can go forwards and back. You can also have your hands kind of straighter out like a down dog. You can walk your feet wider or bring them together, whatever works for you. Okay, let's come back to hands underneath the shoulders, and then we're going to go towards our back leg and bend into our back leg, straighten our right leg, and it's like your whole right foot is trying to make a footprint on the mat. And you can pulse into that a little, just see how it feels in your right inner leg. Now you might stay there for a couple breaths or go back into the center. Another option is to come into a toe squat on your left side, turn your right toes up. So you're in a half squat with your hips a little synced. Of course, you can take your left heel to the ground. So then your left elbow can catch your left inner knee again, and you can shift forwards and back. So you might be feeling that in your right inner leg and then your left inner leg. Again, your elbow can do this kind of press out, in and out, like you're nudging someone with your elbow. You can make that a micro movement or a bigger movement. So you're also working into your wrists here, and you might do this for 3, 2, and 1, and then we're going to come all the way back into the center. You can dangle there if you like, let your head fall. Come all the way around to frame our front foot. And we'll take our right knee towards pigeon. So right knee towards the right wrist, right toes pointed, inch your back knee back a little. And you can always use props for underneath your hips here if you want to be a bit more elevated and that's a bit better for your knee. You can let your hips drop back. See how that feels on your knee. I just want to mention for some folks that have knee stuff, you can flip it onto your back and take your right ankle in front of your left knee and take a figure 4 where you hold on to behind your hamstring or on top of your knee there and wobble into that. So wherever you land, let's take a couple breaths. Let's give our attention to our breath and maybe notice how your breath might support you to melt into those areas that you feel are really holding on tight. I just want to mention that if there's areas that are holding on tight, sometimes they have to be, they're supporting you. So sometimes I like to thank my body for protecting me. And then just checking in, if I feel safe enough, can I let some of the guarding or bracing go? So no need to go too deep into a stretch and force your body to open. Allow it to melt, that theme of our class today. You can also rock side to side and to your hips. One more breath. Okay, we're going to take that whole sequence on the other side. So hands underneath shoulders, lift hips up and back with that right leg. I'm just going to flip myself to the front of the mat so you can see me a little better. So from that downward facing dog, we're going to take our left foot forwards into that long lunge and pulse back through our Achilles, through our calf for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we're going to drop that right knee. You can untuck the back toes. Let your hips drop towards the front of your mat. And you can stay there for sure, or you can shift forwards and back, maybe getting into the front left hamstring as your toes pop up. Forwards and back, aiming your hips straight back. And maybe a couple more of those until you sink forwards, and you can stay there, linger there, or you can start to crawl up onto your front knee. And if you feel more vulnerable in the front of your right hip, press into your front foot and see if that gives you a bit more feeling of support and stability, maybe a bit more length in your low back. And then if you want, circle your arms up, and you can sink a little lower if you want and lift a little higher. Big breath in and out here for you. If you're there, and then hands back down to the ground. And we'll tuck our back toes, lift up our back knee, and walk all the way around, this time to the right side of your mat. So all 10 toes face to the right. And then we're going to do that forwards and back shifting. And you can check out, are your feet along the same plane? Sometimes one's a little more forwards than the other. We're never going to get it perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, or you are perfect, but you can check in to find a little more symmetry if there's little places of imbalance that you can give some attention to. So you might do this on your elbows and shift forwards and back. Maybe that gives you a little more traction to your spine. You can also walk your hands out like a downward facing dog. Shifting to tippy toes and then heavy in the heels. Okay, so now we're going to go towards our right leg. So we're going to bend into our right leg and give a little pulse over to that side. Notice what's happening in your inner left leg. You might even tighten your left kneecap. See if your whole sole of your left foot can kind of grab the floor. And you can stay there, come back into the center and dangle, or you can come into a toe squat on that right side and flip your left toes up. And you could even drop into your right heel there. And then if your elbow can elbow check your right knee, you can shift forwards and back up. A few more times. You might stay here for 3, 2, and 1. And we'll walk it all the way back up to the front foot, to your left foot. Frame that front foot with your hands, and then the left knee towards that left wrist into the pigeon shape. And you can untuck your back toes. Feel free to support your back hip, like lift it up, put something under it. Point your left toes and see how this feels in your knee. So if it's a lot of pressure, flip onto your back again. I'm just going to show you that. And take your left ankle in front of your right knee, and you can hold on behind your hamstring or on top of your knee. And to stay with the Melty theme, you can wobble your hips side to side. So wherever you get there, there's lots of variations to this shape. You can feel free to make it yours. You can do a side bend, do a twist. Put your head on the ground. Maybe keep that movement side to side. You can explore how your breath might support you to find those places of unnecessary tension. So maybe there's necessary tension. That's up to you. That's up to you to find out in your practice. And maybe there's some unnecessary. Okay, let's take our hands underneath our shoulders. Lift the back knee up. Come back into downward facing dog. Pedal it out. And you can come to a seat, or you can lie down on your back if you want a minute here of relaxation on your back, or you can come to a seat. Sometimes it's nice to put a prop underneath your hips there. Any little movements you want to take, maybe a spinal twist on your back or a spinal twist from seated. And I love to close with just a few conscious breaths together. So you can close your eyes if that feels safe for you, or leave them open. And with your awareness, notice your breath. And the invitation is to take a few longer, smoother breaths with me. So you can exhale your breath all the way to the bottom. And then inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale all the way to the top of your breath. Pause the breath at the top, tuck your chin. hold it for as long as you comfortably can or want to before you take a long, smooth, steady exhalation. And you might find this is a great place to drop into a meditation or stay on your back and luxuriate in a little more rest and ease. Thank you for sharing this practice with me today. I hope it's nourishing. May you have peace.